The cycle of gift. Today's wealth transfer or handover, you name it, is just ongoing. And for my imagination and recognition is that the whole world is talking only and only about the money. And very few people are raising the question, okay, what about actually the integration? What about the integration of the Meteor? And in today's talk, I will have this, my great pleasure and my honor, Jay Hughes, once again. We will jump in his book, The Cycle of Gift. And why is it so important that these Meteor, or in other words, there should be in discussion ongoing that the integration should be discussed and not the financial numbers. So welcome, Jay. It's my great pleasure.
Well, Jan, it's a great pleasure for me to be back with you and our audience and to be learning together. Thank you for inviting me again.
Yeah. So if I have pick up your book in the first time, I come across about this meteor description, what you have put in the book. And I found this fascinating. And I test all what I read, tested and implemented by myself also. And what I can imagine, I mean, if you are going in the shoes of these second gen or third gen, all these exceptional people, they are seeing in meteors coming. Nobody knows actually when will it hit.
Mhm.
Is it large? Is it big? Whatever. And why is it so important that these circumstances, I would take this word circumstances, of
Mm.
to give a gift is and should be in the center of each discussion today and also in the future of each family?
And the question of a gift or a transfer, these words are intensely different consciously. To make a gift is to send love from yourself to another. To make a transfer is a mundane act, no different than handing the salt to the next person at the table. What is the consciousness then that is involved when we are about to send something out into the universe to another person? And as I was thinking about this question in and then wrote The Cycle of the Gift with Keith and Susan, I felt compelled, it's an odd word, but I felt a certain internal push, an internal urge that I could not ignore, that the gift to me of the meteor image, that is, there's something between the donor or the transferer, the recipient or the transferer, that's there, and it has its own identity. This image was incredibly powerful to me when it came to me. I even say, for those who are interested, it came from my spirit guides. I don't think I thought it up. I think I received it as a gift, and then I must do something with it. As the years have gone by, since we wrote that book, it does not surprise, I think, anyone to realize that this image must be in one's consciousness if one is not to do harm. So, not to go too far, stay with your questions, but what I'm also very conscious of is that if I am sending something to another person, I must be intensely conscious that I will not do harm. Will I do good? This is a second, even more complex question. But certainly I must be concerned that I don't do harm. So the great question we'll be discussing this morning is, what do you put in your meteor?
Yes.
Ah, that's where I want all the hearts and minds listening to ask themselves to sit back in their chairs, open their minds, open their hearts, and ask themselves, when I act, when I will act, when I act, what am I putting into the meteor? This is the great question, and everything depends upon it. Everything depends on what it is, as Jan was saying, the recipient must integrate. What are they integrating? They're integrating what you put into the meteor.
That's a great opener, and I will give the audience and you as well, Jay, a little example. I had a discussion last week with a large US family, and I had a discussion with the father and the son, and we was on a Zoom call, and and we had a discussion back and forth about the transition and the leadership and all this stuff. And in the end of the discussion, the father said, how I can transfer that responsibility to my son. He was sitting also in the call, and the son was reacting, yeah, I'm waiting for a responsibility what I've never created by myself. I've enjoyed it a little bit, right? And the father came up and said, yeah, I've never experienced this on myself, how I can give this, whatever that vehicle, what I've created, stuff like that, to my children. If we can discuss, or if we can start our discussion today, Jay, with the giver 1st.
Yes, yes.
What is, from your experience, but also from your perspective, what are the main points for in consideration if I'm in the position that I am the giver, right? I mean, what you mentioned previously, is it just in transfer or is it a gift, right? So can you give us just a little bit of a feeling, maybe how hard it can be?
Well, let me say at a starting point, and again, to our wonderful people who've taken their time, which is their treasure, they're giving us a gift, my friend, this morning.
Right.
Everyone who's listening or will listening is giving us a gift, and we must honor that. Thank you.
Right.
Let me start by saying that transfers are of the head, gifts are of the heart. And let me remind the audience that the heart has more connections to the head than the head has to the heart. And the heart has an infinite number of connections to the gut. The heart is the center, as all human beings have always seen.
Right.
So the first conscious question one must ask is, from where am I acting? Am I acting from my heart with all those connections to my head and my gut? How do I feel? What do I think? Or am I acting from my head and maybe I can't feel the heart of the gut? Oh, that's incomplete, isn't it? Look at the system.
Right.
Look at who we are.
Yeah.
So the first question is, what does my heart tell me? Now, frankly, for some donors, they have not been in touch with their hearts often enough. So before they act, they might take a little extra time and ask themselves, gee, I haven't acted from my heart in a while. I love people, I have but I think I've been acting a lot from my head. Maybe I should act from my heart. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, when I'm in my heart, what do I know about the person I'm going to act on? What do I know about them? By and large, we know much less than we think we know.
Yes.
Oh, wow, that's a kind of intimacy I'm not used to. I think I know you, but gee, if I'm acting from my heart rather than my head, I need to know other things about you because I think, gee, if I send you a meteor, the first thing I know, if I'm perfectly conscious, is it will be a burden for you no matter whether it becomes a blessing. It will start out as a burden.
Right.
You have, for one, you have to acknowledge me. That's already a burden. And you have to acknowledge what came in that meteor. And that's a burden. And as the audience will remember, if it's a significant burden, it may come with a lot of connections to lawyers and bankers and other people who that person you love doesn't really want to know at all.
Mm.
And yet, oh dear, with this burden comes not only my relationships, what's in the meteor, but perhaps a whole bunch of new friends I don't want. Oh my goodness,
Yes.
this is really complicated stuff, Jan. So the first thing I have to do is I have to be aware of you, aware of my heart, and then I have to awaken to what I'm about to do. Now, let me be very clear. We cannot know how the other person will receive what we send.
Yes.
I ask you all, as fellow givers, and right along with me, who've made all kinds of mistakes with my gifts, too many transfers, not enough gifts till I learned all the things I'm sharing with you. We can't know how the person will receive.
Yeah.
Let's be just completely frank. No matter how well prepared, we can't know because they have an integration problem. Exactly what Jan said. They have to take into themselves, into their hearts, into their heads, into their guts, something that is alien to them. They did not create this. What we can do from the donor side is be aware of who this person is, of ourselves, of our feelings, of our the nature of what we're about to do, and then act. Now, one more thing on the donor side. Our dear friend Aristotle, I'm all laughing, and we're all laughing. His dear friend, what's he talking about? His dear friend Aristotle, who was living in the 4th century BC in Athens, observing us. That's what he was doing, observing us. Nothing's much changed, I think. Aristotle made a very interesting observation. He said that to make a transfer, he saw was very easy. And he also said, by the way, he was the first one to say to make a fortune was easy.
Yeah.
He was also the first one in literature to say giving it something away was incredibly difficult. So all Jay is doing is mirroring Aristotle. Then what did Aristotle say to our donors? He said, to make a true gift, it must be an act of magnificence.
Mm.
And what he meant by that is a funny English word, very hard to say, magnanimity, big-heartedness. He said to make a gift is really hard because if it isn't magnificent, that is, it doesn't contain magnanimity, heart, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't
So
do it.
yeah. So what have, if you have worked with a family in the past, what kind of, let me take this word, what kind of systematic communication approach have you used that this critical and so important process of giving something won't destroy all relationships in the entire family, right?
Yes, yes.
So can can you give us just a flavor on a little example what have worked well, but also what have not worked well, to make it a little bit more concrete? Because what I can imagine it is also very hard that do you think you give a gift, but in the end of the day, it's just a transfer, right? And you put so many expectations in there and stuff like that, and you destroy everything. Not yet, but on the long term. So that would be great if you can give us just in little example how do you have handled this?
Well, first of all true gifts come without strings. All strings, if there were any, disappear into the meteor, but they're gone. It is an act of heart. Second, all great gifts should come with some acknowledgement of the person on whom you are acting. Remember, you and your meteor are acting on that person.
Yeah.
This is the integration problem that they must then deal with. I can't tell you, Jan, and our audience is going to all be laughing, how many movements of money within families occur with no one really suggesting any human action whatsoever. So somebody says to the family office, he needs his tuition paid, send a check to Harvard. Or send a check to Göttingen. I love Göttingen University in Germany, where my great-grandfather had a little time. What happened? Nothing. The person receiving says he paid my bills. Nice, thank you. But not thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe I don't even acknowledge because it just seems like it ought to happen. I guess that's his responsibility or her responsibility. Wow. What an opportunity missed. Can you feel that? It's missed.
Yeah.
But a college education is an unbelievable gift. It's an incredible investment in the best sense of investment in the human intellectual, social, and spiritual being of a human being. Doesn't it make sense to say, I'm sending this to you because I love you and because I am hoping it will grow these parts of you.
Yeah.
But it's yours to do as you will, And now the person receiving says, oh, that person loves me. Now I still have a duty, but the duty isn't to send a perfunctory thank you note. The duty is to get an A. Go do something that carries that energy out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the donor needs to be saying, what is the right thing to say to this person, why I'm doing this? And not to have expectations that I have for you, but to help you with your aspirations.
Mm. Mm.
I want to know something before I act on what you aspire to spirit, to breath, ad spiratu, the Latin that underlies all of our languages. I know this sounds a little wafty. It isn't. This is the process of concern, of thinking, what am I about to do? And by the way, also in many of these relationships, and then maybe I've given a fair answer for this point, many times the donor is very big and the recipient is very small.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So if I'm very big and you're very small, the image I like to ask people is, how recently with your grandchildren have you been on the floor looking at them at their height? Not looking down like Colossus.
Yeah.
Can, can you get down on the floor and see them?
Yeah.
And can they see you? Ah, back to you.
So let us move us just for a second. And I found these let's call it methodology so interesting. You mentioned this in your book, just adaptation plus resilience plus integration, no, equals integration,
Yes.
equals energy and equals growth. The
Yes.
opposite of this is just adaptation minus rigidity equals disintegration, diminish energy, and in the end of the day, entropy. Everything is gone. So if I take a look in the world today, and coming back in the opener for today's discussion, these big number of more than 100 trillion US is transferred, or there's a handover mainly horizontal, right?
Right.
Not only the children, well, I would say mainly the children will get us, but also the spouses, right? And all these close to family members. I was asking, and coming back to this discussion, what I had with these father and the son, what I've recognized in many discussions about these, let's call it transfer. The son is often freezed if it comes these discussion going onwards. Yes, the father had mentioned, yeah, you can do whatever you want, but in the end of the, he knows exactly no, right? So,
Right.
so, 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 if we switch on the other side to the recipient, and I will take also open the door a little bit to in I would call it the third person, the personne de confiance, who
Right.
can guide the process. Can you give us just in flavor also what you have seen on the recipient side? I can remember you mentioned this in on one of the last podcasts. What you have given these freezing status.
Yeah.
What often is that the person is overspending, right? Nice cars, nice houses, nice chicks, stuff like that. But in the end of the day, he can canalize these kind of energy what he received. What kind of structure can help these so many people there out there today? They are receiving that kind of large gift.
Jan, if I knew the answer to that, I could help so many more people. Um, I will make a stab, as we say. I'll make an effort to offer this view.
Yeah.
But I will say every recipient is individual and is a piece of energy and spirit. And so their process will be theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So, I, however, we need systems and we need to know, as personne de confiance, as you are, and as I am, and as a few others are, well, how might we help? So let me just offer again, to our audience, some things from literature, experiences they may have had themselves. Without medicalizing, which is a very dangerous thing, post-traumatic stress, most of the world, the educated world, knows now the psychological issues that come from the problems of war. They also know they come from sexual abuse. They know that they come from various events that slam into us. A meteor is slamming into us.
Right.
I don't want to analogize to those terrible things that this is the same. It's not, but there are in history and literature and music and places responses that human beings, observing human beings, having meteors, have identified. What are those? Well, the first is to try to fight with it, which is to spend it.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
This is not a good behavior. It isn't that this person is not frugal. It isn't that they're profligate. It is they're trying to get rid of it because what they got was head with lots of responsibilities and duties and burdens. Now, if we think about it that way, all transfers, we'd want to get rid of it too,
Right.
wouldn't we? We
Right.
this is no good for me. Yes, son, you can do anything you want, and here are the 35 response. Oh, yeah, okay. Now, what's the second behavior? Well, this is very interesting because in the press today, by virtue of divorce, and also in the press today by very, very large meteors arriving in younger hands, the second behavior is to fly from it, to run away from it. How do you do that? You try to give it away.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are not making gifts. You are making transfers. Now, again, I don't want to name people, but there's certainly in the press around the world today, by virtue of divorce, which is going to be more and more common, and okay, and then also by virtue of people dying or making big transfers, younger people receiving who are unprepared, so they try to give it away. This is fleeing from it, which is another of the
Mm.
PTSD activities. Now, the worst one, in a certain sense, that you mentioned, is to be frozen by it. Now, we know that if you have a really serious event in your life, boom, let's say you survive a car accident.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, what happens to you biologically and physically is your cells freeze the energy of that moment.
Yeah.
A very famous American psychologist, Peter Levine, used to show a movie which I saw because I died at the age of 2.5 on having my tonsils out, and I couldn't go to the doctor for years because it made me think I'd die.
Yeah.
And Peter Levine explained to me that that energy of that near-death experience had frozen in my cells.
Mm.
And he said, you know, Jay, the odd thing is that all mammals and animals have the capacity when they go through a life-threatening event to shake. And he had a movie showing the animal shaking out that energy and unfreezing.
Yeah.
The only mammal who doesn't are human beings.
Yeah.
We don't have that gift. So who are these people? Ah, this is the nice man, the nice woman, nice clothes, nice house, nice children, nice country club, nothing going on.
Mm. Mm. So,
Nothing.
so many people out there. So many.
Frozen. Oh, and my heart aches. My heart aches that an act by another person of the meteor into their lives didn't free them and liberate them. It froze them. Now, here's the really important thing for our audience. Who does, as a recipient, really well with the integration and the receipt? Now, this person is very odd in a way, and you wouldn't think about it. This person says, Mr. Petka, I have just gotten a meteor. He doesn't use that language, but you know the facts. You're his personne de confiance, or more likely her personne de confiance. And they say, you know, I think I need to pause. Oh, you say. Yes, I think I need to acknowledge that something has happened. Maybe if it's by virtue of death, I need to do some mourning and grieving of a person who loved me. Remember, love.
Yeah.
And I had some other things I was doing that I need to complete. So would you look after this for me for a couple of years? I'm not dependent on you. I'm not asking you long term. I'm just asking, you're a wise man. You have contacts. You could take care of this for me for a couple of years, maybe. Maybe not that long, but I promise you I'm coming back. I'm not walking away from this. I'm not looking away, but I'm going to go and do the other things. And then I'm going to come back to you. And by the way, I'm going to then sit with you, Mr. Petka, for a year or two to learn what I need to learn so I can deal with this alien object that's now integrated into me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then when I finish all the learning, I will rejoin the river of my life and stay from flow to flow.
Okay.
This is the natural way that this must happen. And I can tell you, and then back to the questions, the most successful human beings that I have been privileged to serve understood pause.
Yeah, I mean that's an brilliant thought what you bring into our discussion today. And I would like a little bit expand the question. Uh, I mean, if we discuss the recipient, and you mentioned the term the the personne de confiance as a guide through the process. What I want also a little bit open the door in regards of these, in many cases, large world governance, right? In the end
Yeah.
of the day, it's just how do you communicate and how do you make decisions, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So, is it just if I'm saying it is just on an outlook wise, if we are seeing okay, that's the first large wealth transfer what we see in history, and the next is waiting around the corner, and it will be much larger. The
Yeah.
third one also. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
undoubtedly,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
There is just there's just a need, I would say, for a guide for each family to guide the process and not starting if it's now to yeah I will give just a gift today to you. No, no, no. Start the process very early on, right? That
Yes.
the recipient is prepared, but also that he can decide, okay, I won't do this shit, right? Give it away. It's fine. It's your decision. Absolutely fine with you. So, but coming back to the role of the personne de confiance, is it just from your experience that is just, I would call it the middleman between the giver and the recipient, that he can canalize and communicate between both parties, figure out what could be the best system that each individual can participate and benefit from this process.
Yeah. Um, all of us, very much me for sure, um, would like to have a wise person who is committed to well-being, not quantitative outcome. A wise person, I would say it again, committed to well-being, to a qualitative human experience, stand with us when we are putting someone we love at risk.
Right.
Wouldn't we love to have that person? But we often don't find that person because the persons we have surrounded ourselves with are quantitatively oriented. As we discussed at our earlier session, they're interested in financial capital intermediation. By the way, they may be interested in it moving from your balance sheet to theirs. Well, that's very dangerous. This is very dangerous.
Right.
But for the moment, let's assume that it isn't that problem.
Right.
But they are not interested in their lifetime, which is fine, in the qualitative experience of the recipient of the meteor. Nor are they interested in the iterative, the discussion process with you that prepares you to be a donor. No, but there are people who are interested, and they have been all through history. All through history, there have been men and women who are interested in tribes, elders often, but not always, who are interested in this relationship being successful.
Right.
Because not just the individual recipient's well-being depends on it, but the system of which he is or she is a part. As Aristotle said, our friend, you can't have a flourishing society if the families that make it up are not flourishing.
Right.
Well, if these movements of capital from the donor to the recipient are not successful, then that system that person is in will not be successful and the society will not be successful. So the personne de confiance exists in the world. It comes into life to perform this help. And by the way, that person is very patient with you and kind to you, not because they love you, but because you're a human being with a problem, a difficult problem. If I act, what will be the result of my action?
Right.
And then with the person on whom that action falls, how will he or she survive? They're little, you're big. How do they grow with this thing inside of them that had nothing to do with them at all?
Right.
My goodness, this is alchemy. How do we, this is hard stuff. So that person stands between, not in, but between, to try to make that action as high a feeling of magnanimity, of a heart-based action, of love, so that this little person has the greatest opportunity to say, I pause. And by the way, that personne de confiance will suggest very gently to the recipient, why don't we have a little party and celebrate? And then why don't we hibernate for a while? Let's just go in the cave and be quiet for a while. Let's
Right.
see what happened to you. And by the way, for those who love the story, and I love the story, it's not an analogy. It's not a perfect example or a metaphor. But when Dante, in his great poem, our great Western canon, 3 volumes, when Dante finds himself in a dark wood with no way out, here's the recipient. But Dante is not overwhelmed by it. He's just can't find a way out. So what does he do? He brings Virgil to life. Remember in the poem?
Mm.
Virgil is his personne de confiance. He was a poet. He thought Virgil was the greatest poet. So he says, Virgil, come help me. And Virgil shows up and says, yeah, okay, I'll help you. By the way, Virgil doesn't tell him it's 3 volumes.
Yeah, but
He
coming
just
back to
says, let's get started.
yeah, but here is one question what's pop up in my mind. I mean, you mentioned this so often also in your books and in other materials, the importance of an elder
Yes,
council or stuff like.
yes.
Is this just, I would call it an instrument? I mean, if you take a look on the giver, he can say, okay, I will give something to the other person and I lost something, whatever it
Mm,
is, energy,
mm,
whatever, right? But if the personne de confiance is very early on to focus, let's structure an elders council, right?
yes,
The giver
yes,
is engaged further on in the process, right? And
yes.
that could be also mainly you're with me to say, okay, I as a giver, I uplift the recipient and that we are on the same eye, right? This is just another communication level. And would you prefer that also in the future that there's more focus on the elders? Because in many cases we lost the touch to the elders, right?
Yeah. Well, this has been a fascination for me all my life. Um, I'm 82 and a half, so I can speak with not any knowledge and no experience, just a long life. But when I was a little boy, I was fascinated by people much older than I. It just was,
Yeah.
and I always have been. And now I guess I'm one of those it's old and somebody's fascinated. I guess somebody's fascinated about me, but um, I wanted to know how they knew stuff. How did they know stuff? Um, One of the things that's fascinated me in my life in trying to understand how they knew stuff is that every great culture that birthed a civilization, by the second or third king, he or she came to life to make a library. Now,
Mm.
what does that have to do with this? Well, they wanted to understand what it was to be human. And so they tried to have somebody go out in the world and collect all the books and have a library. They were elders. They were trying to help their people understand what it meant to be human from the human experience, not their founding idea.
Right.
No, the human experience. This always seemed to me to make most sense. My aunt, who was my Auntie Mame in my life, was a librarian.
Hmm.
For 36 years at the New York Public Library, which is one of the great depository libraries in the world, every single book that came into the library went over her desk because she was in charge of circulation. 80 languages she had working for her. So she was about this fascinating process. So when we're looking for someone to help us with this very complicated action on another, a meteor we're sending, doesn't it make sense to find some discerning people? Not smart people. By the way, let me be very clear. Smart is fine. Discerning, oh my goodness, is that hard to find? Would
Yeah.
you agree?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I'm going to do something to someone I love, I'm going to act on them. I think I'd like to find some discerning people, personne de confiance, not personne d'affaires, not dealing with money, moving, or no, people that are worrying and interested in the human condition to ask me some questions, not tell me what to do. No personne de confiance ever tells the number one that he's trying to help or she's trying to help anything. They ask questions.
Right.
And by the way, as my uh, blessed father used to say, you know, Jay, I would have clients and they would be sure they were right. And I knew they were not right. He said, I didn't tell them. You were just doing something stupid. He said, I asked them questions. And he said, by the third or fourth question, because they trusted him, as they should, he was a remarkably trustworthy man, they would say, Mr. Hughes, what the hell are you trying to tell me? And he would say, do you really want to know?
That's true. That's true.
Well, isn't that what we do?
That's true. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We're
Yeah.
not being obstreperous or nasty. No, we're trying to help the person do something qualitative.
Right. Right. So, Jay, that was a fascinating 45 minutes today. And before we closing the session today, I will ask you if I have the opportunity, and please have this picture in your head. I rent the greatest stadium in the US, and I put you in there in front of all these families, and you have only three quotes what you can give these families as an advice. What kind of quotes won't be this?
Seek well-being. Wealth means well-being, and love each other as deeply and crazily as you can.
Great. Great. Many, many thanks, Jay. That was great. And yeah, I mean, that is just also my mission to bring this topic more and more into intention. We need these discussion about the integration. And so for now, many, many thanks, Jay. Until
Jan and our wonderful listeners, thank you for your time and your treasure and the joy of sharing this journey. Thank you.
many, many thanks.